portion of your tour today. This is raw barley. Raw barley contains starch. Each one of these little seeds contains starch. Starch is a storage form of energy. Maybe you've heard that before in some ancient class that you took, I don't know how long ago. But starch is in fact a huge molecule made up of thousands of sugar molecules bound together. This is malted barley. Malted barley is full of sugar and short chain starches. And that's the last time I'm going to say short chain starches, because we're going to simplify this talk. So we're going to say this is a little C full of starch, this is a little C full of sugar. Now the way we got from starch to sugar is through the malting process, which is a three-step process. The first thing you do is you get this grain wet. When it gets wet, it begins to live because it's not dead, it's dormant. So I could take this home and get it wet, and in a couple of days it would start growing. So this is a dormant seed. We get it wet, we let it germinate. When it germinates, what it's actually doing is converting that starch into sugars and then using the individual sugar molecules as its energy source. So starch is unusable. You have to first convert it into sugar. So it's converting its own starch into sugar, using that sugar to grow. When that sprout is about a ½ inch long, we now know, because we've been malting barley for over 10,000 years, we now know that we've got a lot of unused sugar in that seed. If we let it continue to grow, it would just use up all of its sugar, and we want that sugar. So we're going to kill it by roasting it when the sprout's about a ½ inch long, and now we have all that residual sugar trapped inside that seed, and this is what we have right here. This is the malted barley. Now, Stone Age people figured this process out. Why did they even have to do this? That was kind of a lot for Stone Age people to figure out, you know? I mean, people have always been smart, but the reason that they had to malt barley is because, oh, you can come down. Yeah, no problem. Is because of yeast, which they also didn't know anything about. How smart was that? Stone Age people figured out how to make alcohol from a grass seed. Amazing. So as it turns out, yeast cannot convert starch into sugar. If you gave yeast starch, it would just lay there. You can give us starch, we know just what to do with it. I hear people love starch. I read that in the paper once, I think. But we convert that starch into sugar in exactly the same way this grain does, and we use our sugar for energy as well. I suggest you use your energy to drink beer. That's a valid use of energy, as far as I'm concerned.
Sounds
Anyhow, walk from brewery to brewery. That's what you're doing. So yeast cannot make that conversion. If you want to feed yeast, you have to give it straight up sugar. And that's what Stone Age people figured out how to do. Not knowing anything about starch, they knew nothing about sugar, they knew nothing about yeast. So, 2 thumbs up. So nonetheless, this is our base malt. That means this big jar of barley here, this is 70% of the malt we use in every beer. And there's 2 reasons for that. The first reason is a base malt should be really bright white on the inside. This is what makes this a base malt, because it is so bright white. Come on down, no problem. Quite all right. So the reason this color is important is because if we only used this base malt to brew beer, we would get a golden yellow beer. Beautiful, wonderful, but we don't only want a golden yellow beer, do we? No, thank you, alcohol guys. We do not only want a golden yellow beer. We might want an amber beer, or, more true to the point, a caramel colored beer. And if we want a caramel colored beer, we're going to add crystal malt. This is crystal malt. So I'll show you. So that's what crystal malt looks like. There, you can see some variation there, but what we're going for is this crystal. This is actually, you can touch that and you can feel that it's kind of sharp. These are little crystals. The base malt is a powder, but this is actually crystalline in structure. It is also caramelized. So the maltsters, the people who malt barley, that's really what they're called, they have roasted this longer at a higher temperature, and so they caramelize the sugar and they get caramel. So if we want a caramel colored beer, we're going to add this to that and we'll have a caramel colored beer. Now maybe we want a beer that's even darker than that. Maybe we want a stout. And then we're going to use some of this very dark roast. And I don't even really have to squish it because it's the same color inside as it is outside, but there you have it. This is dark roast. So if we're going to make a stout, we're going to start with this, and we're going to add this to it. Now, you can't start dark and add light to it and get light. So we start with this light grain, and we add these darker roasts to it to get darker beer, but we're also getting richer and richer flavors. So richer colors, richer flavors. So this golden yellow beer is going to taste like biscuit. That's sort of a common thing we call that flavor. Really light. If we add some caramel malt to that, what flavor do you think we're going to get? Yes, you are. Because it is. So we get a caramel flavor, caramel color. If we use this grain, we're going to get every other flavor you've ever had that is also darkly roasted. So what flavors have you tasted in porters and stouts?
Coffee.
Coffee's a big one. Our 5X stout, totally coffee, chocolate, any others?
Oatmeal.
If you add oatmeal. But we're just talking about dark roast right now. Molasses, I've had some African stouts, and there's a Baltic stout that I quite like, and wow, it smells like they fermented molasses. But it's this roast. It's just a different kind of this roast. And what is molasses? Very darkly caramelized sugar. And toast. I had a Belgian beer once that tasted like burnt toast. I'm not kidding. It tasted like burnt toast. But some people really like that. I didn't like it, but it was an 8% beer, so I drank it. What, are you going to send it back? No. But nonetheless, we're getting more and more sophisticated flavors because there's more flavors. So I said there were two reasons this is the base malt. One reason is it's a very light color, so that's a nice base to start with. The other reason this is the base malt is because when you roast this barley to this really light degree, you are preserving the sugars in this barley as simple sugars. That means we have monosaccharides, that is one molecule of glucose. That's one molecule. We have disaccharides, that is two molecules of glucose bound together. That happens to be called maltose, because there's a lot of that in malted barley. So glucose and maltose are two of the sugars that are in here, and the yeast loves these sugars because they're simple, they're really tiny, and they go through their single-cell organism very easily. So the yeast is going to use up all of these very simple sugars in the base malt and give you back
alcohol.
Alcohol, that's right. So this is our alcohol content. When you roast the barley darker, you're actually beginning to bond the sugars back together again. So these sugars are longer, and the yeast can take them in, but it doesn't prefer them at all. So a lot of these sugars are going to stay in your beer. So what does that mean? Caramel-colored beers are?
Fattening.
What's that?
Fattening.
Fattening. They're all fattening. Let's just truth be told. But they are sweet. Yes. So what you're getting is you're getting a lot of the residual sugars that the yeast has not taken up. You get to have them and experience it as a sweet beer. It's really easy to get a dry blonde, It is not, it's impossible to get a dry caramel colored beer. There will always be residual sugars in that beer because of the roast. And this has no sugar. There's no sugar in this. It's all been burnt up. The yeast can't access it. There's no alcohol at all is going to come from this. The only reason we use this very dark roast is for those incredible aesthetics, that wonderful rich color and that outrageous flavor profile. That's it. So we are going to put that myth to rest. Oh, that's a dark beer. It must be high in alcohol.
Right.
That has nothing to do with anything. You cannot look at your beer and know anything about the alcohol content. You can know what flavor you're going to anticipate. If it's a blonde beer, this is going to be nice and biscuity, you know, but you cannot tell anything about the alcohol. You're going to have to drink it and see how you feel. That's what's going on there, or ask your bartender, or read the label on the bottle. But other than that, there's no way to know anything about the alcohol content. In fact, on your tasting today, you've got a beautiful golden blonde beer that is 9% alcohol. So you're welcome.
Sounds good.
You're welcome. You're going to like that. So, any questions about malted barley?
Are there different brands of malted barley?
There are
like
different varieties,
companies?
yes. I have chosen these because they're so different from each other, but there are lots of different kinds of malted barley. There's different cultivars. This is, I'll show you one of my favorites. In Washington State, we are bringing back some very old heirloom varieties of barley. Let's see. So this is a variety called Bear, B-E-R-E. This is actually from Scotland, and this is where beer got its name. This is Bear, B-E-R-E. We just switched the R and the E. So this is Bear, and this is called Purple Egyptian. Can you see how purple that is in there? So this is Bear, really old from Scotland, and this is Purple Egyptian. So these are two barleys that are being grown in eastern Washington right now in the Palouse Valley. And we're extremely happy about this because these give us new flavors and aromas of barley, which is awesome because we are in the flavor business. We are a craft brewery and we care about the flavor of the beer. The big breweries are not in the business of flavor in their beer, they're in the alcohol business. So we are very happy about this happening. So yes, there are different cultivars of barley, but even more than this, even barley from England, barley from Belgium, barley from our agricultural region in the U.S. Yeah. So, and most of our barley comes from Canada also. Big barley growing region in the middle of Canada. So, yeah. Are you from Canada?
No.
Oh, okay. You're looking at him like, hey, from your hometown. So lovely. Any questions about barley? We're going to move on. Yes.
Is there like any barley in Asia or in other continents?
Oh, there's got to be. There's got to be. I mean, so beer was first we think beer was first brewed in Iraq, in the Fertile Crescent, way more actually than 10,000 years ago, and about the same time period, maybe a few centuries later, somewhere in Asia, I'm just going to use the air quotes there, there was also a kind of beer being brewed.
Okay.
But that gets kind of dropped off of the historical register when we're talking about the timeline of beer. But it's really funny. The Egyptians got, so the Sumerians are the first people who wrote down the recipe for beer. They're the ones who really dialed that puppy in, you know, and really got the recipe and got the procedure for brewing beer. And that then was passed on to the Egyptians, which were in the same relative continent anyway, area. But then in Asia, on the completely different side of the planet, this spontaneously happened as well. So beer had just come to people. Like it didn't go from, there wasn't a diaspora of beer knowledge. It happened simultaneously in one place and then again in a whole different place in the world. So it is quite interesting. So there must be big grain growing regions and hop, and maybe not hops. You don't have to have hops to brew beer. You can brew beer with 3 ingredients: yeast, water, and malted barley. That's beer. But if you want to add, a level of sophistication to your beer, you can put some herbs in there to balance that extreme sweetness. Cool, thank you. So we're going to move on to my favorite ingredient then. I just can't wait. Welcome to Washington. We grow hops here.
Yay.
Yeah, did you know that already?
No, I did not.
Did you know that already? Okay, I get to tell you then. We grow 25% of the entire world's hop supply.
Oh, shit.
And for 2 years we have surpassed Germany, which was the biggest hop growing region in the world. So in a little Washington state, yes, in eastern Washington, we grow hops. And there are 2 reasons we grow so many hops here. We sell so many hops here. The first reason is we are high in Washington. I don't know if you've noticed that since you've been here. We are located a certain distance from the equator. We are way up here in this latitude. We share this latitude with Japan, becoming a big hop growing region, with Europe, big hop growing regions in the middle of Europe, with England, also south of the equator, Patagonia, the tip of South America, also New Zealand and Australia, really big hop growing regions in the same latitude. So the latitude matters. The latitude matters for hop growing because we grow oily hops at this latitude. We grow very oily hops here because at the end of summer, when we're going into sort of the harvest season, daylight hours are dropping off really quickly. It's getting darker and darker, earlier and earlier here. You know, if you live at the equator, you have a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night, and that happens 365 days a year. But up here, your summer and winter day can vary by 7 hours. That's quite a bit. Sometimes we come to work at night and we go home at night. It's kind of crazy. But nonetheless, when these hop flowers are in full bloom at the end of summer, they feel the absence of sunlight because they get all of their energy from sun. So as the daylight hours keep dropping off, the hop flowers produce a lot of oil. And they produce 2 different kinds of oil, and these 2 distinct oils help them go to seed, help them to reproduce quickly before there's no sunlight left. So these 2 oils, the first one is called alpha acid. This is a thick, sticky oil. It gets all over the petals of the hop flower, and that helps to attract pollen. So the pollen will stick to that oil and that flower will be able to create a seed. The other oil is called essential oil, and this is an aromatic oil that is thin and it evaporates or it volatilizes. That's the evaporation of an oil. So this evaporates and it sends out a scent trail. Well, what do you suppose that's for? Bees. Pollinators will come to those flowers carrying pollen, and that pollen then will stick to the flowers because of this alpha acid. So these 2 kinds of oil that this flower produces are used very heavily by the brewing industry. We use the alpha acid as the bittering agent. This is the bittering agent that we are going to balance this sugar with. And the aromatic essential oil we use for aroma and also flavoring hops because, once again, smell, taste. So we use these oils to our best advantage, and that is one of the reasons that at this latitude we grow really great hops because they're super oily. Now the second reason we grow so many hops here is because of our growers. For over 100 years, our growers had the vision to import hops from Europe These are called noble hops. They've been being used to make beer for longer than this has been the United States of America. So they're old. So they get these old noble hops and they have cross-pollinated Washington's wild hops with these hops that have already been being used in Europe. There are lots of wild hops across the U.S., but Washington State growers did this cross-pollination with European hops. And so now, over 100 years later, we have many generations of what are called daughter hops. And now we are bringing the most amazing new aromas and flavors to beer drinkers. For example, if you've ever had an IPA that smells or tastes of tropical fruit, like pineapple or mango or passion fruit or papaya, melon, mandarin orange, strawberry, blueberry, lemon, so many new aromas and flavors we are bringing to the beer drinking public. You're welcome. That because it's awesome. It just the aroma of beer now has really come a leap better. So it's no longer just, grapefruit and pine and floral, which are awesome as well. All of the flavors are good, but we've added to that. We also grow hops specifically to be high in bittering agents, specifically to be high in alpha acid. We do that as well. So we're growing specific bittering hops, specific aroma hops, specific flavoring hops, and so that's another thing we do. So these two reasons are why, while you're here in Seattle, you should drink all of the IPAs you can and really start to educate your nose and your palate about what's possible in big hoppy beers. It's not just about bittering. So any questions about hops? All right, then how about I show you how we brew beer?
Sure.
Okay. You are standing right next to our brew house. This is how we're going to get the liquid that we ferment downstairs. So this is called a gravity flow system. Clearly the tanks are stacked in a vertical line, but we have to get that malted barley up there into that red tank so that we can start dropping the contents of these tanks down. So the first thing the brewers do is mill in. They're going to assemble the grain recipe, whatever that is. They put that through the mill, which is right below you guys, one floor down. The whole malted barley goes into the mill and it gets cracked. It does not get pulverized like this. That's a bad mill job. We just want to have each seed get a crack in it, and that is called grist.